Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto sucedoye olahudi samyao samputoshe.
Namo saranto sucedoye olahudi samyao samputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫能遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛。Venerable Master, Dharma friends, good afternoon, good evening, welcome. Glad you're here with us. My name is Heng. Today is Sunday, January 28th. Wow, we're at the end of January. Right in the middle of Aquarius now. It is Saturday the 27th in California. We're here to investigate the Flower Garland Sutra, the chapter called Entering the Dharma Realm, probably better translated as integrating with the Dharma Realm, merging with the Dharma Realm. The Gandavyuha chapter, the ultimate story of the Mahayana path. We're going to conclude the second scroll today. We're at the very end of the second movement. We're about to begin the third next week, where Sudana shows up. So, big things happening here in chapter 39. Let's invoke spiritual presence. Invite the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Avatamsaka assembly and the Dharma protectors, gods, the dragons, the eightfold pantheon, the Tianlong Babu to attend and get all the benefits of their arriving. So here we go. Later on, as we investigate Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's repentance verse. That's coming up. Let's acknowledge country. We want to say here in the weekend of Australia Day, we had this Australia Day just 2 days ago. We respectfully acknowledge the Kombumerri people of the Ugambi language group as the regional storytellers, traditional storytellers, and custodians of the land where we're located here. We pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. If we said that in Chinese, we would say, 我们恭敬地承认 Ugambi 语族的 Kombumerri 人 他们是我们寺院所在地的传统居士和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从未放弃主权的第一民族的原住民致敬。Yes. Pomo people, they're up in Mendocino County of California. The Ohlone people, they're there in the Bay Area of Northern California. And we finish with the bell song. I was just thinking, when I traveled to Taiwan, which because of this last year, because of the election, we didn't go this year, but often I get an annual trip to Taiwan every year. And there's a town in Taiwan where bells are made. And some of the very finest bells, big ones and little ones and handbells like this one, and meditation bells that are like a bowl, are made in that town. And we didn't get to go this year, but I'm looking forward to my next trip because I'm going to come back with some more of these fine sounding bells. This is such a pure sound. No overtones, no distortion. And the sound blooms. There's a ring and it waits and then it goes like that. And not every bell is a winner, but because we're friends with the bell makers, they let us go into the factory. And it's a couple old timers who know how to do it right, and some young people they're training. And they let us sit there for an hour and go ding, no, ding, no, ding. Oh, let's try that one. And you narrow a dozen down to 3, and from 3 you say, we'll buy all 3. You know? And of course, the last time we went, we found there's actually 3 or 4 families who make the best bells, and we went with one of our old laymen who lives in Qishan, and I won't mention his name because everybody knows him, but he's an old timer. He's retired, and his wife has passed away, but he's been our layman since 1980. We've known this family, and so we went to the best bell making factory, and we had picked out the bells we liked, and we were all set, and got down to the price, and the owner said, who had been drinking, by the way, a lot of fumes. The owner of the shop had been drinking, and so our layman said, how much? And kind of leaned into giving them a look that meant, you can give us a good price. And the owner gave us a price, and the layman said, robbery. Stood up, walked out, that was it. Didn't turn around, just no. I thought it was going to be one of those, take 10 steps and wait for the next price. No, that was it. Go to the next family. Those are the best bells. No, that's too much. Crazy. You can't argue with a drunk. You're not going to get a good bargain from a drunk. So I still think of those bells because they were just great. And so anyway, we went to the next family and came back with this, pure sound. So I'm looking forward to the next trip. We can come back with some bells, and it makes a big difference. We have our meditation group, and when I ring one of these bells that I brought back from the right family in Taiwan, it's just this inspiring sound, very pure. So here we are, and let's do it. Ready? The bells sound wide, resound throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the the Buddha's path. 众生传3000界内，佛法扬万亿国中，共训其法界和平，利益报他能厚德。I might mention that, like the Bell family, in that same town, there are wooden fish makers. And our layman has a long relationship with one of the best of the wooden fish makers. And this gentleman has been making them in that little town in Taiwan for 3 or 4 or 5 decades, passed it on to his kids, and he himself learned in Japan. So he carries a Japanese mukugyo, the muyu, wooden fish tradition, to Taiwan and uses the local woods. And the fun part is he and his wife, when they have friends and guests whom they trust, he comes and he hands you a plastic bag and he says, pick one. And inside the plastic bag are 50 rough wooden fish. They're all about the same size, and they're rough, they're not finished. He says, pick one that you like. And they're different colors, different wood patterns and grain patterns. You pick one out and you hand it to him and he goes, oh, that's nice. And then he takes his knife and he finishes it for you on the spot. Goes in, he cuts it, and he taps it. Do you like that? No, not so much. Scrapes more out, taps it. You like that? Shapes it here. And when you're satisfied, he puts a natural finish on it and hands it to you. And you get your wooden fish on the spot. And it's like you really see traditional craftsmanship. And then, of course, every time you're hitting that wooden fish, learning the Great Compassion mantra, Namo Allah, Namo Allah, takes you right back to the family and the tradition and the natural element of wood there to help you recite. It's very wonderful. So, knowing these families in this little town in north central Taiwan is great joy. All right, today, oh boy, today is a big deal because we're finishing second scroll of the chapter 39 of the Avatamsaka. And the exciting part about it is it's Manjushri, Bodhisattva's instructions. Manjushri is teaching 6,000 monks how to walk the Bodhisattva path. And his, I don't want to give it away. I've got some conclusions that I've written down that I'll share later. But this is a turning point. This is the hinge of the practice of the Avatamsaka Sutra. It happens last week's lecture and this week's lecture. The 6,000 bhikshus have seen Manjushri Bodhisattva, the mother of all bodhisattvas. They've been so moved by him that they ask him to take them as students. They want to officially be his students. They want him to be their shifu. And he accepts. They say, we want to walk like you, we want to act like you, we want to talk and think the way you do. We want your merit and virtue. We want to be as good as you are. And he says, yeah, can. And he says, all right, if you want to do that, I accept. And here's my advice to you. You have to learn how to do all these things with a xin wu pi yan, with an untiring mind. Most important is that you don't give up. You don't quit. Most important, you don't get tired. You don't burn out. You don't say, enough, I've had it, I'm fed up. That's the most important part, he says. That's how he starts it. and that's, so it's like, right away, Manjushri Bodhisattva is putting these young cultivators on the Bodhisattva path as he understands it, and his hope is that they won't retreat back to a lesser level of practice. What's a lesser level of practice? I want to get enlightened and leave. I want to reach nirvana now. I'm out of here now. Let me stop. I've reached I'm going to cash in my chips. I want my dividend and I'm done. That would be a lesser goal. Instead, and that's, from in ordinary talk, of course you want to do that. You've been going through birth and death, reincarnation and all the suffering for so long. It's been so much suffering. Old age, sickness, and death. Old age, sickness, and death. Reborn, get old, get sick, and die, and reborn again. That given the opportunity to end birth and death and reach nirvana, who wouldn't? Well, the answer is bodhisattvas wouldn't. Bodhisattvas say, I'm not suffering anymore. I've reached a level of samadhi that suffering for me is endurable. I can endure it. But if I leave and I know that people who I'm related to are still suffering, I can't rest. So I'll stick around. Give me a job. I want to learn to teach living beings. Manjushri goes, yes, success. You're my student. I want to teach you how to be better and better and better at this bodhisattva stuff. So that's what's going on. Today's section are his final instructions to them before we get Sudana, Shanzai Tongzi, who shows up to walk the path. So now I was always interested in the action with Sudana. I didn't really, until I started explaining this in detail, this series recently, I never paid attention to the encounter with Manjushri and Shariputra until just now. And I am convinced that this is the actual turning point. This is where bodhisattvas begin. This is the instruction, this is how to for beginning bodhisattvas. From who? The expert, Manjushri. So if we really want to understand what makes the Mahayana different, what is the engine for our tradition, it's here. This is essentially what if I were to kind of make a theory of this, and like an academic theory, I would say this is the Shi Xin. This is the 10 faiths, the 10 stages of faith. 10种信仰. And the 10 faiths are actually the foundation of the Bodhisattva path. But if you go looking, primer of Buddhism, 学佛的入门, or something like that, you won't find them. You don't find the 10 faiths. They just point to them. They say, there are the 10 faiths. They're connected to Manjushri. Meanwhile, let's start with the 10 dwellings, the 10 practices, etc. But here we are. This is the actual foundation. And we get to hear it today in Manjushri's own words. Ready? Yes, we're ready, Dharma Master. Okay, let's begin. 2 pages. Look, page 1, page 2, the end. We'll do this first paragraph, first chunk. Ready? 使诸比丘闻思法已，此得三昧。
Please share.
Up. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Always forget that. Okay, that's why we paid Jerry the big bucks. Okay, here we go. 使诸比丘闻思法已，此得三昧，名无碍言，见一切佛境界。得此三昧故，悉见十方无量无边一切世界诸佛如来及其所有道场众会。Right? That's it. So start. Here we go. At that time, when the bhikshus heard this Dharma, they attained a samadhi called unobstructed vision that showed them the states of Buddhas, Having realized this samadhi, they could see measureless and boundless Buddhas, thus come ones, of worlds in the 10 directions, as well as their bodhimandas and assemblies. Okay, stop. What's this? So, they, just before, Manjushri had said, you know, if you can do that untiring mind, 10 kinds of untiring minds, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to fall back to be a lesser sage. You're not going to be a voice hearer, pracheka, sowe, archon. You're not going to be an archon. You're going to be born in the Buddha's households. You'll have bodhisattva's vows. You learn about the Buddha's virtues. You're going to cultivate all these practices. You're going to get the Buddha's powers. You're going to get rid of afflictions. You're going to be a bodhisattva. So all of these good things. If you can, you know, once you get the wu pi and xin, 所有这些好处都会到你那里. What are they? These are all beginning things. This is all like preparation for the journey. If we were climbing mountains, this would be gathering the gear. Probably that's a good analogy. If we were going to go up on the top of K2, this would be your pack, your boots, your crampons, your oxygen mask, your your ice axe, your ropes, you know, your sleeping bag, the dried food, your stove, all that good stuff. You'd be getting all that stuff, preparing for the ascent to Nirvana Mountain as a bodhisattva. So Manjushri says, yeah, you get all this good stuff. When they hear that, what happens? They zi de sanmei. They get a samadhi. Now, this is key, because what happens once you prepare your mind that way, your body, mind, and spirit all merge into this new function. Samadhi, my best analogy for samadhi was, I was a college junior. I was a junior at college in a small liberal arts school in Michigan called Oakland University. A friend had a Porsche 911, and he had to get his car across the Windsor, Ontario Bridge all the way to Toronto, and he needed a driver. And he asked me if I could drive a stick shift. And I'm like, yeah, I drive as a Volkswagen mechanic. And sure, I can drive a stick shift. He says, would you be willing to take my Porsche to Toronto? And I said, twist my arm. Yeah, sure. I said in about a second and a half. Yes, I'd be happy to drive your multi-$1,000 sports car to Toronto. Basically from the Detroit area across the Windsor, Ontario Bridge to Toronto was a straight shot. Ontario was fairly flat, and then I would fly back to Detroit. So he said, here's the keys, here's the address, here's some money for gas. Now, be careful, he said, this is not a Volkswagen. I said, no problem, no problem. So it was in the parking lot at the university, at the dormitory where I was. And I was impressed that to sit in the driver's seat of the Porsche 911, you sat really low. And the physical orientation, I was used to a Volkswagen bus where you're up high, you can see everything. You're looking out the windows like this. The steering wheel is essentially flat and you're turning the wheel like this. And for the Porsche, you were down low and your feet were sticking out to handle the clutch and the accelerator. And so the physical orientation, everything was much lower, was kind of extended out like that instead of being up high. And so turn the engine on and it's air cooled still. The Porsche is basically designed in a Volkswagen engine. It's air cooled. It's not water cooled. And so put it into first gear, and in 6 seconds I was going 60 miles an hour, just like that. I drove it off the road because I was not ready for first gear in the Porsche 911, and I had to struggle. Luckily there wasn't gravel, otherwise I would have spun it and would have maybe, ruined the paint job. But it was the car was instantly, I felt this, and the tachometer, which tells you how fast the engine's revolving, went like that. And I was used to Volkswagen, 40 horsepower. This was 4 times that. And suddenly it was like, and I was off the road. My reactions were too slow to catch up to the car. And it took me a couple hours of the Trans-Canada Highway on the way to Toronto to really kind of feel like I could incorporate that much energy, that much, revolutions per minute, RPM. And why am I telling this story? It's because samadhi is like that. When you can enter samadhi, instead of the standard meditation experience where it's like, count my breath, and recite a little bit, and watch and kind of feel everything settle, and the pain arises in your knees and your back, and you have to watch your false thinking, kind of the process of meditation. Instead, this time in samadhi, when you meditate, it's like everything is tuned, everything is in harmony, everything aligns, everything comes to a single point, and then that point goes to an octave, right? We have that. This is my other standard samadhi illustration. So this is ordinary consciousness. Samadhi consciousness is there. Ordinary samadhi. Hit the wrong string. There we go. So ordinary samadhi. Hit the C string. Here we go. That's ordinary consciousness. Samadhi is another octave. There it is. It's vibrating at another level. So, sort of, those are rough approximations of what samadhi is. Samadhi is a sammei, they call it. Zheng Ding Zheng Shou in Chinese. Correct state of openness, reception, integration with the world around you, and all the different colors, all the different sense organs are all in harmony in a whole new way. When the bhikshus heard Manjushri speak that way, they got a samadhi that allowed them to see the Buddha, not only the Buddha, but the worlds where the Buddhists teach, as well as the monasteries and groups where the Buddhas were teaching. It's as if a curtain opened and suddenly the Buddhas were visible to the bhikshus. They'd never seen the Buddhas before, but now they could not only see the Buddhas, they could see the worlds they were in and where they were teaching. Oh, that's different. Look at that. I can see Buddhas in worlds of 10 directions, and who's there listening and what they're saying, and how wonderful that is. Why? This will inspire the bhikshus to stay on the bodhisattva path. So Manjushri's teachings are there to support the bhikshus' new first steps along the bodhisattva path. Seeing Buddhas, measureless and boundless in number, that'll do it. That'll keep you inspired. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go on down to finish out the 10. We're going to go all the way down to, we'll go all the way down to the bottom and then come back and explain it one by one, all right? So what else happened? The gist of this is something else happened as Manjushri spoke Dharma for them and they reached this samadhi. Here we go. 一息见彼十方世界一切诸趣所有众生，一息见彼一切世界种种差别，一息见彼一切世界所有微尘，一息见彼诸世界中一切众生所住宫殿。以种种宝而为庄严，即亦温彼诸佛如来种种演音，演说诸法，闻此顺事，悉皆解了，亦能观察彼世界中一切众生诸根心欲。亦能意念彼世界中一切众生前后十生，亦能意念彼世界中过去未来各世劫世，亦能意念彼诸如来十本生世十乘正觉，十转法轮，十种神通，十种说法，十种教戒，十种辩才，又即成就十千菩提心，十千三昧，十千波罗蜜，悉皆清净，得大智慧，圆满光明，得菩萨十神通，柔软微妙，诸菩提心，坚固不动。Okay, that's it. That's it. Boy, this is so rich, so good. Here we go. Right here, this one. They could also see beings in the different destinies within the worlds of the 10 directions. They could also see the distinctions among those worlds, as well as the dust particles in those worlds. They could also see the palaces adorned with jewels in which the beings of these worlds lived. Further, they could hear the Buddhas, thus come ones, speak the Dharma with many voices and many languages. They could understand their words, their diction, their teachings, their explanations. They could visualize the potentials and heart's desires of the beings within these worlds. They could recollect the 10 former and subsequent lives of the beings within those worlds. They could recollect the past and future events of those worlds within 10 eons. They could recollect the events of 10 former lives of all Tathagatas, their 10 realizations of right enlightenment, their 10 turnings of the Dharma wheel, their 10 spiritual powers, their 10 types of speaking Dharma, the 10 teachings and exhortations, and their 10 eloquences. They also immediately realized the 10,000 Bodhi minds, the 10,000 samadhis, and the 10,000 paramitas, all of which were purified. They attained the magnificent light of perfect wisdom. They attained the Bodhisattva's 10 spiritual powers. They became gentle, compliant, fine, and wonderful. And they stayed in the stable, unmoving mind of a Bodhisattva. Yes, there it is. Now, I ask you, if you were out to create a Bodhisattva who was likely to succeed and stick around and walk all the way to the end of the Bodhisattva path, what else would you want to give him but this stuff? This is so, once we understand that it's Manjushri training Bodhisattvas, this all makes sense. Okay, I put it together. I put the Chinese and English on one page so we could see it and talk it over. Okay, so here we go. Here it is. So the samadhi, they get a samadhi. What's it called? It's called Wu Ai Yan Jian Yi Che Fo Jing Jie, called unobstructed vision that shows them the states of Buddhas. What is it? They get to see the Buddhas suddenly. It's really as if a curtain was pulled back and suddenly, like, oh, look, wow, just over there, Buddhas. What do I see? Yesterday, 2 days ago, I came out in the morning, looked down over the railing, and here were 2 kangaroos just leaning back on the newly mowed grass of my front yard. They were so comfortable. They looked like zizai kangaroos. Oh, zizai daishu. There they were. They were husband and wife. They were like, Mom was messing with her pouch. She probably was talking to her new baby in her pouch, her new Joey. Dad was just, and then he laid back and he stretched. Oh my God. You guys look so comfortable in my front lawn. I don't see Buddhas, I see kangaroos. So not that I'm complaining. I like seeing the kangaroos in my front yard. But they weren't Buddhas. These bhikshus, they see measureless, boundless Buddhas. Thus come ones. Shi Jian, Zhu Fo, Rulai, Dao Chang, Zhong Hui. Right? What else? Shi Jian, they see Soyo Zhong Sheng. Okay, they see Buddhas. The next thing they're going to see to get them ready to teach, the living beings whom they're going to cross over. Where do they see them? They see them in their different destinies. Butong Chu. I didn't copy that. They see them, how does it go? Iche Zhu Chu. They see them in their places of rebirth. That's where they see them. They see them there. Iche Zhu Chu. They see them where they're going to be taught. In the worlds of the 10 directions each. So in other words, they're seeing some in the hells, some are animals, some are ghosts, some are devas, some are humans. They see them there. Because why? Manjushri wants these bhikshus to get ready. He's training them to walk the Bodhisattva path. Furthermore, Shi Jian Iche Shirje Zhong Zhong Tribi. They see the worlds that these living beings in their various rebirths are inhabiting. So, this now, important to understand, the Avatamsaka Sutra has a big frame, a really big scope. And worlds are many, numerous different kinds of worlds. And they're all visible to these living beings. I also take part in a translation group that meets every week. And we're currently, it's really interesting, there's about, last week we had 19 folks from everywhere, from Hong Kong, from Canada, from Sydney, from California, everywhere. And we're in chapter 5. We're working on chapter 5 of the Avatamsaka, where Samantabhadra has taken us through the worlds. He names them, and they're stacked up. And it's a long chapter, a list of worlds in all their differences. And it's like, yeah, you have to, we take a lot of side discussions as we translate. Otherwise, it would be kind of boring, kind of deadly. It's very much, you always have the feeling that Samantabhadra is a tour guide. And you're in a window bus, and he's saying,
on your right, if you'll notice, you'll see this world is covered in lapis lazuli.
And it's like, yeah, it's like, okay. And on your left, it's a tour. And he is qualified to guide us through all the different worlds in all their differences. So the Avatamsaka does have chapters, entire chapters, that you could say are not that exciting, because it's describing the worlds in great number, one after the other after the other. Their names, their attributes, their virtues, how they're different. And now, because of the samadhi that Manjushri has enabled these monks to see, they can see all the worlds, how different they are. Shi Jian, Iche, Shi Jian, Wei Chen, Soyo Wei Chen, all the dust particles, meaning they have an understanding of the makeup of these worlds. This is not just fantasy, this is scientific in the most proper scientific way. Why? Because these bodhisattvas, when these bhikshus, they're now beginners, this is the training phase, they're going to go in there and make transformations happen. They're going to have shamanistic powers in those worlds. They will be able to create different combinations of earth, air, fire, and water, and wood, and metal, and space to allow living beings to grow. So they want these are engineers. The samadhi is really powerful. Okay, next, 悉见一切众生所住宫殿，以种种宝而为庄严. They can see the places where the living beings live. Why would it be palaces? Well, a lot of the potential living beings are rulers of the worlds. So they do live in palaces. They don't live in mud huts necessarily. The Avatamsaka is often, the Buddha is often talking to royalty, to nobility who have they can get away from growing food, because most of the world, back when this was created, the sutra was first taught, were agrarian. They were farmers. 90% of the population was involved in bringing food out of the earth. If you're a farmer, you don't have time to read. You don't have time to meditate. You don't have time to make offerings to the worlds. But right into that world, the Buddha appears, walks through the streets of Sravasti and the Jada Grove, and those who can, including beggars, including women, including merchants and warriors, come out of their worlds to follow the Buddha. So this is not a, by saying living beings palaces here, like this is not a, what do you say, it's not privilege for socio-economic wealthy people. When you have affinities with the Buddha, it doesn't matter what your background is, or your gender, or your age, or your bank account, you follow the Buddha. So, now, this next one, I really like this one. Because of the samadhi, what happens? These bhikshus can hear the Buddhas in those worlds, in those assemblies, speaking the Dharma with all the different languages, and they understand them. How cool. There's a reality check. When I go to China is such a huge country. So many people, so many different dialects, so many different languages. It's often said that just across the valley, people don't necessarily understand each other. Language, there's so many languages in China that have been there for 5,000 years. They're well rooted that often I pretend that I can speak Chinese, but in reality, in China, I'm often like, 听不懂,对不起,我真的听不懂. Not so in Taiwan. Because my first exposure to Mandarin was in Taiwan, when I'm in Taiwan, as long as people are speaking Mandarin and not Taiwanese, I feel very comfortable. I can get along in Taiwan in Chinese, because that was my first impression, was Taiwanese Mandarin. When I go to China and you've got somebody from Hunan, somebody from Gansu, no, can't. But then I get 10%, 15, 20, 30%. However, right in the middle of that, if there's somebody who shows up who comes from Beijing and who speaks standard Putonghua, my ear relaxes and I can have a good conversation. But ordinary folks, it's not so easy. And here's the point. Master Xu Yun, Master Empty Cloud, was raised in Hunan. And what if, finally, you've gone to see your Shanzhishi, you travel and you go to where he is speaking Dharma, and he starts to speak and you can't understand him. You could come and bow to him and he's like, It's like,听不懂. How frustrating. Look at these bhikshus. They can hear all the Buddhas in every different place speaking Dharma, and they understand their words, their diction, their teachings, and their explanations. Thank you for the Samadhi Manjushri Bodhisattva. Ayo. So, I've told this story before, but it bears repeating. If I tell this story, people are going to know who I'm talking about, and that's Ganga. It's embarrassing. I had a situation where I was supposed to be the interpreter for a Chinese monk. I didn't understand him. And he gave his first talk, and he asked, look to me to interpret what he said, and I'm like, 法师对不起，请你再说一遍，请你再慢一点。No. Yeah. Oh, golly. So, yeah, that would be wonderful to have the language samadhi. Look at that. 种种语言演说诸法，闻此顺势皆悉皆了。You understand everything clearly that they say. That would be good. Okay, so we had Shi Jian. They could see because of the samadhi. 5 kinds of seeing. Then, Wen, they could hear as well because of the samadhi. Now what else? Neng Guan Sha. 2 are visualizations. They visualize, let's see here. Nope, there's 1 visualization. The potentials and heart's desires of the beings in those worlds. In other words, because Manjushri is preparing these bhikshus, 6,000 monks, to be bodhisattvas, this is their first step on the path, they can look at living beings and know what they want. They can know what beings like. And if you know what somebody wants and what they like, you have a big step forward in being able to teach them, don't you? Because you know what they want. And you don't do things they don't want. And when you try to teach them, you accord with their likes. Wow, that is a samadhi that is worth having, isn't it? If you know what somebody likes and doesn't like, you can avoid the things they don't like and do the things they like as you teach them the Dharma. Okay, look at this. The next 3 are yi nian, neng yi nian. 3 memories. They recollect those beings' 10 former lives. Oh, that's a helpful samadhi. If you know what somebody's been in the past, you can see their tendency, you can see their habits, you can see their trajectory into the future based on what they did in the past. That would be very helpful. Furthermore, they 意念过去未来各世界事. They know past events of those worlds. Were you a soldier? Were you a merchant? Did you die of the plague? Were you there when a pandemic came through and you died early? Were you wealthy? Were you cheated out of your wealth? Were you lost as a refugee? You were, because of a war, you were pushed off your land and you had to wander through lands that were not your own. That's traumatic. So within 10 eons of events in those worlds, these bodhisattvas can remember. If you try to teach somebody, boy, that would be so helpful to know, right? Now, as like most of you, I hope, as you hear these things, you think, well, who was I for the last 10 eons? What happened to me for the last 10 eons that bring me here to Australia, that bring me to Vietnam, that bring me to Florida or Colorado or Campbell, California? Here I am in this body, in this consciousness. What was I in the past? A bodhisattva who knows the answer to that question? I would like to listen to what he can teach me. Okay? Next, look at this one. This is a big one. This is number 9, and this is number 8. out of 10. They recollect the events of 10 former lives of the Buddhas. 10 times they got enlightened. 10 times they taught. 10 spiritual powers that they have. 10 ways they speak the Dharma, and the 10 kind of special teachings they give with 10 kinds of eloquence. What is this? This is reference for the bhikshus so that they can do it the way the Buddhists do. They can become teachers of Dharma. Do you get a feel for what's important here? Manjushri is training bodhisattvas. This is what bodhisattvas do. They 讲经说法, right? They 讲开示, they 介绍佛法, they speak, they interpret sutras, they give talks, they illustrate their principles. This is the one that I like. 10 teachings and exhortations. 十种教戒. What is Master Hsuanhua's most common teaching? Well, when I got to Gold Mountain, it was 三大宗旨. 动四不攀缘, 饿四不华缘, 穷四不抽烟. It was the threefold manifesto, the Gold Mountain Manifesto, with its three freezing to death, we do not beg. Starving to death, we do not climb on conditions. 冻死不攀缘, freezing to death, we do not beg. 饿死不华缘, starving to death, we don't 饿死不华缘, we don't beg. 穷死不抽烟, dying of poverty, we don't go out with our hands out and ask for help. Right? So that was the teaching. Once City of 10,000 Buddhas came along, we didn't hear about the Gold Mountain Manifesto anymore. We heard about the 6 guidelines, 六大宗旨. And I remember when they were the 5 五大宗旨. Only after Feng Feng came along up in Vancouver, it became 6. So Shifu taught the 六大宗旨 over and over and over. 6 guidelines, right? And 不争不贪不求不自私不自利不打妄. No contention, no greed, no seeking, no selfishness, self-benefit, and dishonesty. Those are the primary 十种教戒 that Shifu talked about all the time. Now, of course, there was so many other things too, but that was kind of the signature that Shifu said, if we can understand this, we will have a way to teach Westerners. He said, this is important. And he wasn't kidding. He said, I've cultivated 50 years, this is the best thing I've ever found, he said. So these Buddhas all had theirs too, I'm sure. Okay, then what happens next? 成就十全菩提心. Notice there's 10,000, 10,000, 10,000 Bodhi minds, samadhis, paramitas, which all became purified. Purified means they got to work. They started to work for them. The bhikshus were able to make them work. Bodhi minds, samadhis, and paramitas. These are what? This is the Bodhisattva path. You go to the Pali texts, you don't find this. It's not in Pali text. This is not part of the Arhat path. This is the Bodhisattva path. This is the Avatamsaka Sutra's special instructions that Manjushri is the teacher of them. And then, finally, the last is they de. Okay, so we had, what do we have? Remember we had see. With the samadhi, they can see things that they never saw before. They can hear the Buddha speak Dharma. They can contemplate living beings' minds. They recall these patterns. They're kind of examples, ways to do these things, ways to cultivate, ways to teach. Then they accomplish Bodhi minds, samadhis, and paramitas. And then they have they get something. What do they get? 大智慧圆满光明得菩萨实神通柔软微妙住菩提心坚固不动. They get the light of perfect wisdom, Bodhisattva's powers, and then they themselves become gentle, compliant, fine, wondrous, and they make the Bodhisattva's resolve and never leave it. This is Manjushri's teaching. This is it. He has got 6,000 new fledgling bodhisattvas after this. How cool. Okay. So I had Okay. My insights on this, my reaction was to say, here's the circumstances. They met Manjushri, they bowed to him, they said, we want to be like you in our actions, in our thoughts, in our virtue. They said to Shariputra, please introduce us. He did. Manjushri accepted them, and he taught them. They got their first instructions, and then they changed. They themselves are different now, having met Manjushri Bodhisattva. He is a trainer of bodhisattvas. That's what he does, among other things. And what he has to do is, these bhikshus are people. They're good-hearted people they have what are called shagun. They've got a lot of good roots. They have a lot of virtue, gongda, daoda. And they have decided that they want to be bodhisattvas. That's a big difference. That is to say, fa putishin. They've made this bodhi resolve, which is what? This is the best thing a person can do. Given that we all start with the same Buddha nature, if you can make the bodhi resolve, that is the most unselfish thing. It is the most good. Altruism is just like holy, 100% good thing. And notice there's one more part, which as he teaches them, he says, I need to get you to a place where you don't quit. Because why? It's going to take a long time. Once you set foot on this path, it's long. And there's lots of discouragement. There's lots of disappointment. There's lots of doubling back and starting over. That's what I want you to do. And all of the results that we've just been looking at, all these different, this samadhi that lets them see and hear and understand, it's designed to stabilize them on the higher path so they don't quit, they don't retreat, and to prepare them for their work ahead, which is teaching the Dharma to living beings effectively. Do you agree? Is that what you got from what we just saw? If I was Doug Powers, I would say, y'all understand that much? Y'all get that much, right? You understand that? That's Doug's style. All of these things that happen to them are designed to make them bodhisattvas. This is the foundation of the bodhisattva path. He's a trainer of bodhisattvas. He's called Pusadrimo, right? Pusadamochin. And this is the first. This is the beginning of it. Beginning of the path. Okay? All right. Now, we could, let's take a little break here. That's a lot of stuff. Oh, okay. Since I praised my insight, I want to demonstrate. We did this yesterday at the picture biography, but it's worth a second look. This is just excellent. What is it? The illustration of Zizai. In the morning, this is 8 a.m., 7 a.m. Yeah. Not Buddhas, but kangaroos. There they are. There's Mom. She's at ease. 很自在. There's Dad. Dad is like, oh, this is so comfortable here. I'm so glad you mowed the grass. Thank you. And he's like, breakfast, feed me. Don't waste time. I'm hungry. So, how about that? Oh man, some people see Buddhas, some of us see kangaroos. Huh? Here he is. There she is. Yep. It's summertime and the living is easy. It was hot yesterday, so 33 degrees. So yeah, all right. Now, in order to get us to the end of scroll number 2, we have to do a little bit more, just a little bit more reading, if you don't mind. Okay, starting here, and you notice, that's it. That's all there is left. Let's do it. Let's finish. Here we go. 尔时文殊师利菩萨劝诸比丘住普贤行，住普贤行已，入大愿海，入大愿海已，成就大愿海，已成就大愿海故，心清净，心清净故。身清净，身清净故身清利，身清净精力故得大神通，无有退转。得此神通故，不离文殊师利祖下，普于十方一切佛所，悉现其身，具足成就一切佛法。That's it. End of scroll 2. Ready? At that time, Bodhisattva Manjushri told the bhikshus they should abide in Samantabhadra's practices. Staying with Samantabhadra's practices allows them to master his ocean of great vows. Upon mastering his ocean of great vows, they should realize his ocean of great vows. Upon realizing the ocean of great vows, their minds will be purified. Upon purifying their minds, their bodies will become pure. Upon attaining physical purity, they will feel light and at ease. Upon attaining bodies that are light and at ease, they will attain great spiritual powers and never regress. Upon attaining those spiritual powers, they will never leave the feet of Manjushri. And, pervading the Buddha lands of the 10 directions, they will make bodies appear and thoroughly master the Buddha Dharma. All right, end of scroll number 2. Take a look. Here's the deal. What does Manjushri say? He says, don't follow me, follow my friend. Not me, go to Samantabhadra. Notice, can you look here on my picture? Here, there we go. Samantabhadra, Manjushri, Vairochana, Manjushri, Samantabhadra, Vairochana. They teach as a team. These 2 bodhisattvas follow this Buddha. The Buddha's name is Vairochana, Pilu Janafo. And he has 2 helpers. One is named Manjushri, the other is named Samantabhadra. They teach together. They do. And I think it's so neat and such a good lesson for us that Manjushri's moment in the spotlight, what does he do? He pushes to Samantabhadra. Question? 看不到.看不到. 为什么看不到? Here we go. What happens next? There we go. We're back. Right there. Okay. So, Buddha Dharma is not competitive. Bodhisattvas are not jealous. They don't compete. They don't fight for attention. Earth Store doesn't feel jealous about Guanyin and vice versa. So, Manjushri Bodhisattva says, you know what? All of you bhikshus, good job. You got that samadhi. Chen, zhu bi qiu, zhu pu shen heng. I want you to stay, abide, live inside Samantabhadra's practices. That's going to carry you along the Bodhisattva path. So, what are Samantabhadra's practices, you might ask? Yes, indeed, we might ask that. They are 10 activities that here, living in the monastery, you do every day. If you live in a Mahayana Buddhist community, you do all 10 of these every day. You bow, you praise, you make offerings, you, what else? Repent, you rejoice, you request, 2 kinds of requesting. You study, you accord, and you transfer. That's it. 4 of them are personal: bowing, praising, offering, repenting. 4 of them are social, which is to say you request the Dharma wheel be turned. We did it today. Sam just did it today. You request that the Buddhas stick around and don't enter nirvana. You study with the Buddhas, and 2 of them, the last 2, are universal. You always attune, you accord with living beings, and you transfer all the merit. That's Samantabhadra's practices. That's it. Those are the 10. There's 4 personal, 4 social, and 2 universal. And they sound kind of familiar. They're not awesome, cosmic, unattainable except for great bodhisattvas. No, they're everyday stuff. Manjushri says that's the key. Pu Shen Heng. Furthermore, he says why. He says, look, if you do that, what happens? You ru. Oh, Ru Da Yuan Hai. Once you do that, you get good at Samantabhadra's vows. They're called practices, they're also called vows. Pu Shen Da, Shi Da Yuan Wang. Pu Shen Heng, sing. They're called Heng, they're called Yuan. Vows and practices. You will master them. You'll become good at them. You will master, also merge with, integrate with those vows. Once you do that, once you merge with, integrate with those vows, you will get good at them. You'll realize them, chengjiu. They will become perfected. You know, they're like a trade, like a skill. They're like gong fu. You get good at bowing, good at praising, good at offering, etc. Once that happens, once you accomplish them, what happens next is your mind becomes pure. That is to say, selfishness is gone. Shifu's 6 guidelines: you don't fight, greed, seek, be selfish anymore. Your mind is purified. Once your mind is purified, your body becomes purified. Notice it goes first from an attitude, from a perspective, then habits. Body is habits. You don't crave eggs and meat anymore. You don't crave alcohol or tobacco anymore. Once your body is pure, you have a new state of being. You become qing li. Every movement is effortless. You don't feel fatigue, like you can work and never feel burdened by it, because you're not expending any energy and tension. There's no tension in your body. After you feel that ease, what happens? You de da shen tong. You get psychic powers. You can transform. You can change. And you never leave them behind. You never retreat from them. Once you got those psychic powers, you're connected to Manjushri all the time. You're there with your teacher. You never feel apart from wisdom. And this one, these next 2, these are incredible. Pu yu shi fang yi qie fu so xi shen qi shen. You can make bodies appear. You have that wisdom that allows you to transform. And you're a Dharma master. This, where do we find more about these last two? Is in the 10 stages, the Shirdipian. You remember where number 8 and number 9 was about speaking Dharma and then being able to transform. So you become expert at the Bodhisattva path. Look at that. That's it. That's the last teachings for the 6,000 bhikshus before Sudana shows up. And it all focuses on Samantabhadra's practices, not Manjushu. I think that's so interesting. But you see, I like the way this is threaded. Once you get this, then this happens. Now, once that happens, then this happens. And once this happens, you can do that. There, it's all flows along. And the goal is what? To master the Buddha Dharma. These are beginner's steps on the Bodhisattva path, and it's the right path to get you to Shiju, the next level. We have some illustrations. Where does Samantabhadra pop up in our daily stuff? Anybody who has done our ceremonies knows Shi Yi Dang Guo Ming Yi Sui Jian, right? It's at the very end of the day. The last thing we say is Samantabhadra's verse of exhortation. This is designed to carry you out of the Buddha hall into everyday stuff that you have to do. And we haven't had a good English version of it, but we've got one now. It goes like this. This day is already over. Our lives are that much less. Like fish in evaporating water, what joy is there in this? Great assembly, be diligent and vigorous, as if your life were at stake. Be mindful of impermanence and take care never to relax. Amito. Right? That's the verse of exhortation. Today's over. Your life is less by one day. Like what? Like a fish in water, in 33-degree temperature, the water evaporates. What joy is there? 自有何乐? Can you be happy as you know that the water that you need is evaporating? Great assembly, be diligent, be vigorous, just as if your life counted on it. Be mindful of impermanence. Take care never to relax. Amitofo. So that's the last thing that monks and nuns say, and laity, as we end our day, every day. The other, we also have another musical connection to Samantabhadra, which is his verse. This is number 4, the repentance verse. For all the harmful things I've done, with my body, speech, and mind, anger and stupidity, through lifetimes without number, to the this very day, I now reflect and I vow to change entirely. For all the harmful things I've done with my body, speech, and mind, meaningless greed, anger and stupidity, through lifetimes without number, to this very that's 往昔所造诸恶业，皆由无始贪嗔痴，从身语意之所生，其我终结障昧。I had a lot of thinking about this because this is the verse that I recited with every bow that I took on a pilgrimage. So a couple million times with the Chinese of that. It's a fountain of hope that comes from the source of all hope, the mind, virtues of the awakened human mind. It's like a power wash. You know, think of a machine that gets the grit out of the sidewalk for places in the mind that nothing else reaches. This verse lets us clean the thick layers of sticky ignorance off our nature so that once uncovered, the light of virtue can shine. Then we act without being afraid, we can speak without harm, we can think without error. The reflection and renewal function of the verse removes past mistakes, and it prevents the new ones from accumulating. This signals a willingness to face shortcomings and habits and encourage ourselves towards unselfish generosity, kindness, and service. It allows us to shape the future, to take charge of our lives, and to step into a space where every action is a blessing, every word is a prayer, every thought is an expression of our collective awakened potential to be better, just to do better. So it's powerful. And this is Samantabhadra. This is him. This is our Bodhisattva. Samantabhadra is just wonderful. Bodhisattva. Thinking about that, you know, the Bodhisattvas starting out on their path with Manjushri as their guide. I remembered a story that happened on the pilgrimage, and I just thought I would read it instead of trying to, because it was written up by Marty, by Heng Chao. And this is from December 18th, 1977. 1977. Norman and Arleta Hammond and their two kids came out for a meal offering. Norman is a rescue fireman and a teacher at a local college. We are in the Tri-Cities area of Southern California. This is really remote, rural. And like here, like in Benogan, where we have our volunteer local fire brigade, likewise, the firemen there are all volunteers. Norman is one of them. Although they didn't know much about Buddhism, they felt a strong affinity with what we were doing. Although they could be very successful and live in affluence, this family consciously chose not to do it. Instead, they tried to find what's pure and natural, from food to their basic attitudes and values. Norman said, "We don't want our kids to grow up wanting things and full of endless greed. We try to provide an alternative to the false values that they see on the television." And now you would extend it to say the internet. The internet didn't exist in 1977. To do it, the family backpacks together and they try to stay clear of the cities. Norman says, "Cities are plastic. They're too fast." One of the two kids of the Hammond family said, "Our style of hiking is to go slow and just be quiet. We take time every few steps to take a look around us." The son said, "It's a lot like your 3 steps, 1 bow." We noticed that. "I've often wanted to explore a canyon or just sit at one lake for a week." We noted that Buddhists explore inside and sit quietly in dhyana and chan and contemplate the mind ground. Norman says, "Yeah, that's it. It's really on the inside. That's where the real stuff is." Norman later went on to describe over lunch a dream that he has and he wants to fulfill someday. He says, "I would like to go out on a long walk and never come back. Just really put it all down and keep going." Someone said that was a good definition of monks and nuns. So just when I come close to connecting through, kind of losing myself and merging with something, it's time for me to come back and return to work and all that. So that was Norman's dream, just to keep going someday. The kids really liked the prayers that we did before and after lunch. The Hammonds are typical of a lot of bright young families who come to offer help and to check out the Buddha Dharma. They have so much energy and compassion and good roots. They're a special breed of people who aren't afraid to question and turn around from false views and empty highs. They want truth. They want to benefit the world. Politics and traditional religions have left them cold. They're starting to look within. Yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, natural foods, alternative lifestyles are just scratching the surface of this vast potential. The back to nature impulse will lead eventually back to the original self-nature and supreme enlightenment. Norman says, it's just a question of time and exploring. Someday soon, he says. So that was that's from that's volume 3 of our bowing journal. This one is called No More Masks. Journals and Letters of a Bowing. It's available on available on BuddhistTexts.org. Show people where that is. BuddhistTexts.org. 50 years of translating and publishing Buddhist texts in the West. Recommend that people go out and we have lots of different languages in translation, an online bookstore with audio CDs, magazine, Espanol, Viet, Francais, Italiano, and Nihongo. Different languages that we've translated Master Hua's teachings. Okay, there you go. Since we're looking at websites, I would also like to point people to, let's see here, I need to share my screen. I think I better do that first. Then here we are. And let me do that again. Buddhist Texts. right there. 50 years of translating and publishing Buddhist texts. Okay, a lot to research there. Translation. Okay, the other thing I'd like to share is the new Dharma Realm Buddhist University website. Ooh, we have a great new DRBU, Dharma Realm Buddhist University. Advance the journey of you. This is a nifty new website dedicated to liberal education in the broad Buddhist tradition. Study the great books, small classes, dedicated faculty, loan-free education, educating the whole person, our mission. Shifu says, education is without beginning or end. There is not a single location that is not a place of learning. There's not a single moment that is not a time for learning. So, DRBU, highly recommended that you all check out that brand new kicking website. Golly. Keeps on going and going. Yeah. There we are. Okay, but I noticed that Jinwei Shi is online, and let me go to Berkeley Monastery. Jinwei Shi, Amitofo, how are you?
Hello, Dharma Master. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Jin Chuanshi.
Happy birthday tomorrow, by the way. Monday, not tomorrow.
Yeah, you have a few days to go still. And
My tomorrow. Happy birthday.
Yep. Impermanence happening. Another birthday.
Happening. There you go.
So yeah, we have a few announcements about our upcoming events. And the first we can see is we start, in fact, from beginning of February, a month of meditation session at Berkeley. But we want to open for everyone at least a weekends. So Saturday, if people interested to come and learn about meditation from different angles, we talk about body awareness, about kind of basic care, how we can relate from the heart to ourselves, how we can train our panoramic awareness, and kind of moving into sacred aspect of meditation through the different dimension of listening. So this is kind of approach what we want to use. And we have 4 classes. 3 of them will be on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, because a day before, at February 10th, we will have event at Berkeley. We will celebrate as Lunar New Year.
Okay.
So people can register here if they want to come. And also, besides that, people can stay even actually whole day, or most of the day, and kind of have a day-long sitting with the monks and everyone, Saturday and Sunday, 2 days from the next upcoming weekends. We have the dates over there, and please register, and you can point out what time we want to stay and practice with us.
Okay, good. Great.
And we have a Chinese music assembled. Actually, today they have a gathering.
They gathered today.
A lot of joy and wonderful sounds came from this ancient, preserved, and form of art. And we can say another form of meditation.
国乐团. Do you know what instruments showed up?
Today we have flute. We have what was there?
Not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
They tell the next time will be also drums.
Okay, yeah.
Some instruments we cannot name it because we have some education.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really exciting to get that back on. We had it for many years, and now it's got a rebirth. That's good.
And amazing is to see the effect of this rehearsal and playing. Everyone's so happy after finished.
Oh, it's energizing, to be sure.
It's really kind of a good vibe.
Yep.
In the air. Yeah, so this is that. And we are moving into Stephen Taylor starting soon on Wednesday. A new course every week online. People see here the Zoom link, and he will basically, I think, responds to people's questions and comments, and definitely he wants to bring a spirituality awareness into our daily lives. And he does that for 40 years plus. So definitely he's qualified to talk about the topic.
Yep.
And Guanyin session is coming, and people, if they wish, they can come through the DLBU extension kind of road, and every step will be explained, will be orientation and opportunity to talk to some teachers, and will be everyday lectures provided in English. It's very meaningful for many people. Many people have benefited through years from the sessions, and Doug Powers partially also will be hold the space and also offer some explanations during the one session. Also, we are there too as well.
Okay, that's good. Then Sudana Center Retreat, June the 1st to the 8th.
June the 1st, exactly.
June 22, 29. And Snow Mountain, July 4th to 7th. Lay Bodhisattva Precepts, July 7th. And starting
and tomorrow, Dharma Master, before tomorrow we can back a little bit.
Right there. That's where we're going.
This is tomorrow too. Yeah, this is in the evening. 10 transference chapter. So
1:30 p.m. here in Australia. We're going to be back to not only the 10 transferences chapter, but we're progressively going through the biography of Master Xuanzang. Oh, as he went to India to get it is so exciting. Incredible adventures with a true Buddhist hero from the Tang Dynasty.
It's great. Yeah, and also in the morning, and we will recite the 21 times Great Compassion mantra, and with the final dedication of merit for the month of recitation, exactly here.
Okay. 28.
So people will gather from many countries, and it's quite amazing. They keep going since the beginning of pandemic, and the community actually growing. So it's amazing opportunity to offer something very meaningful for the world, but also we can see the deep transformation, those who dedicate themselves to support the world by recitation of Great Compassion mantra.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff. Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Amitabha.
Lots going on. Here in the Gold Coast Dharma realm, take a look at this. We have a Chinese New Year blessing ceremony on February 9th in the evening, 7 p.m. to 7:45, involving Medicine Buddha, and we'll have an evening performance of music and martial arts and good stuff. Then the next day, the 10th, we're going to do Medicine Buddha repentance for the benefit of the new year and the whole world. So just to let people know about that. Alrighty, well, one more week. Next week we begin scroll number 3 of entering the Dharma realm, and we get the preparation for Sudana to show up, and that's when our Manjushri's instructions go to this young man, and he sets off towards Buddhahood. Okay, the world could definitely use our dedication, use our merit, so please make a wish and send off all the goodness wherever you care to share it. Share fruits of peace with hearts of good and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. We'll finish with 3 bows. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. That will do it for us for this week. We'll see you all next week. Amitofo. Bye now, everybody.